Welcome, everybody. Thanks for having me. My name is Jude Boudreaux. I'm a certified financial planner with a small boutique wealth management firm here in New Orleans. I'm a Loyola grad, business class 2000, so not that long ago, but still quite a while ago. Is audio okay? Okay, great. But I'm here to talk to you guys about, honestly, whatever you want to talk about. I passed out something that my intern asked me to put together a few months ago, because we would just have these random conversations about financial planning, and so I put this together for him as a way for us to have a framework for things that we would talk about, and they're things that I really believe about finance and financial planning. This is not by any means an agenda for what we're going to cover today. This is the agenda for what we're going to cover today, and it's basically blank. It starts here with whatever you guys want to talk about. So if there are things, what would you need to get from me in order to make sure that you got what you wanted to have out of your class tonight? And I really want this to be wide open, conversational, and casual. Even though I'm wearing a necktie, it's really not formal.
I guess in building our careers, like ways to, find the right investment and how to budget.
Okay.
Those of us who can't.
All right. Budgeting's a big one, tough one, but something we will definitely talk about. Budgeting, investing over your working life. All right, what else? Loans and grants for business, school? What is for which? Okay. All right.
Could you please talk about the difference between a credit score versus a FICO score and how you can, what exactly they both cover separately and how to raise the score?
All right.
Paying back student loans.
Okay. Student loans. Yeah.
Like tax credits, like where you should look to apply for them, that kind of stuff.
Okay. That's a tough one, but good. What else do you guys have?
Health insurance.
Big one. Anything in particular about health insurance?
I mean, I guess the best options for like a person our age. So.
Yeah. Call your senators. That's the biggest thing I can tell you. So disappointed in Mary Landry. So health insurance, how to get it when you get kicked off. What else? Well, I'll say a few things about health insurance. But yeah, really important. Most bankruptcies happen, not most, it's probably not more than 50%, but the largest single class of bankruptcies happen due to medical expenses. So it's really critically important. I got more slides, so don't feel like you have to stop. Yes?
Good ways to establish credit.
Okay, good.
How can you tell if you're properly capitalized?
Okay. Yeah.
I have no idea about high interest savings accounts, stuff like CDs and stuff, but it's
Okay. Types of savings accounts. How to get more than 0%. Because that's what you get right now. What else?
If you pay off your student loans and pay the rent, anybody got student loans?
Yeah, me. Can I raise my hand?
I guess like ways to build your credit.
Okay, ways to drop one here. most important thing I do at work every day is shut up and be quiet. So I can be quiet longer than you guys probably can deal with the silence. So just, is there anything else? I'll let you off the hook. All right. So start talking about budgeting is, I think, one of the more important things that we can talk about here today. And I hate the word budgeting. It just sounds like a drag, and it is. If you've ever sat down with a spreadsheet and tried to figure out what the deal is with your money and where is it going and why am I spending so much on coffee, or going out or whatever it is. One of the things on my thing about budgeting is number 2 is about focusing on cash flow and not income. I sit down all the time with new clients who come into us, and they're doctors who are making $250,000 a year who just came out of medical school, or they're making $30,000 a year, and they have no idea where their money is going. And they have no ability to save any of it because there's a law in our business called Parkinson's Law. And Parkinson's Law is that your level of expenses rises to your level of income, and sometimes a little bit more. It's just unavoidable. I've seen it all over the place. I've seen it happen to myself after I graduated from college. So I think the most important thing is you got to know where you stand. You got to know what your regular expenses are, and so that's where it comes down to tracking and having a budget.
Is there also a law that says it falls back down?
I was just about to ask that.
Oh, when you're, say...
You go out of college and you're making nothing.
Oh, it depends because there's a baseline.
Money on
Right. Well, that's more a behavior question than it is a financial question. But it's, to me, that's what this is all about. People know inherently knowing the right thing to do is easy, doing the right thing is difficult, right? So when you're looking at your finances, I think bottom line, you got to know what it takes to run your household for 30 days. If you're living on campus now, I think one of the downfalls of the way money is dispersed for college, especially if you're living on campus, is it doesn't get you into the habit of thinking about things on a monthly basis. When going out after college, that's how everything works. Your student loan bills are going to be due every month, your car note, your bus pass, everything comes to you once a month and you've got to pay it. So how do you deal with that? Knowing what it takes to run your household for 30 days at a minimum is crucially important, and that is what I would call money past. You all are familiar with Christmas Carol, Scrooge and all those guys. Well, he was visited by the ghost of Christmas past, Christmas present, and Christmas future. Your money works exactly the same way. You have money past, money present, and money future. And if you get one thing out of class today, this idea about managing your money is the most important thing I can give you. Your money past is money you've agreed to spend. So you came to Loyola, you got some student loans. You've agreed to spend X amount of dollars for not for the rest of your life, for the next 20 years or so, paying off those student loans. You go and buy a car. You agree to spend $250 a month on a car payment for a used car that you got for the next 3 years. You sign a lease. You got 1 year that you have to spend X number of dollars a month. You buy a condo like we did. I have 30 years of fixed payments on that condo. But that money that I've agreed to spend every month, I got to know what that number is, and I got to be able to cover that. That's my bottom line fixed costs. My friend who came up with this idea of money past, present, and future says that the most dangerous words with regard to people's finances are, I think I can swing it, or I think we can swing it if you're a couple. And if you're out and you're looking at a house or furniture or whatever, without really thinking about it, you say, I think we can swing that, and you add another one of those 30-day expenses on top. And money past limits what you can do now and what you can do in the future. So control that fixed cost, control your money past, know what that number is, and manage it really well. Money present is, what do I need for the next 7 days? It's enough time where I have a pretty good idea of what I know is going on, and I come to an agreement with myself, or myself and my spouse, to whatever that number is going to be, and that's the money that we have that's discretionary. That's lifestyle money. So it's Wednesday, right? Or it's Tuesday. It's Tuesday. Jeez, I don't even know what day of the week is. It Tuesday or Wednesday? It's Tuesday. Okay. It's been a really rough couple of weeks. So it's Tuesday. I should know Wednesday's tomorrow. My birthday's tomorrow. Thanks. So I need to know what I'm going to be doing for the next 7 days. Once a week, Karen and I do this talk a lot more for couples, and I imagine not many of you are married, right? That's a whole other set of issues. We'll come and find me later, and I'll do with the money and marriage issues later. But sit down with yourself and look once a week. Sundays are great for doing this. Now the football season's over especially. Take Sunday evening and look at what do I have to do the next week. I got to get some groceries. I got to fill up the car. I've got dinner plans on Tuesday night, and know I'm going out Friday and I'm going out Saturday. How much do I need to spend this week? And set that money aside in a separate pot and agree with yourself, this is the money I'm going to spend for this week. Inevitably, things come up, and you may need a little bit more, you may need a little bit less. But setting that money aside somewhere for you that's separate from everything else will help you create a discipline about what you're spending because you've agreed in advance that you're going to spend that money. Does that kind of make sense for everybody? And this isn't an exact science, but what it does by deciding that, if you don't decide, this is the danger with not deciding, is that whenever something comes up, you just say, okay, well, yeah, I'll go do that. Well, yeah, I'll go do that. That was me in college with new credit cards. And you end up with a lot of debt that you're carrying, and you add on to that 30-day money your next month. So if you start living outside of your means, not only do you have to find extra money next month, there's less that you can do the next month from a lifestyle standpoint as well. And then we have money future, and it's money that we want to have for future things. So money that's for retirement or money that I'm paying towards debt. Any money that goes towards debt reduction above what I have to pay on every 30 days is savings. It's money I don't have to repay later. Creates flexibility. Money that I'm putting into a cash account that's going to give me some more flexibility or stability down the line if I want to start a business. All the money that I'm saving into my savings account, my money market, that money is money future. The whole idea of having these three different constructs and three different pools of money is if it's all just in your checking account, you'll spend it. Or it's a lot easier to spend it than if you have a conversation with yourself and decide what you're going to spend every week. My favorite way to do this is cash. I get $60 every 2 weeks for my discretionary money. That's my allowance. That's not all I spend every 2 weeks. Karen and I do other things, go out to eat, but that comes from a separate pot. The money I don't have to be responsible for is $60 cash. It comes out of the ATM every other Friday. I go and I hit it once it's payday. I'll take out my cash. The thing about cash is that it's a great scorekeeper because it's very easy to open up your wallet and tell you if you have any money left or not. So if somebody calls me up, late notice, it's not a business expense, and they say, hey, let's just go grab a bite for lunch, I can look and see if I can do it or not. Now, I always have the ability to override that, right? I've got my debit card, I've got my credit cards. I can go spend more money if I want to. But it's in that moment where you have to decide. One of my favorite Stephen Covey things is you have to exercise integrity in the moment of choice, which sounds a little bit intense, but it's really true. You have to decide at this moment, is going out for a couple of drinks more important than saving that $20 for next week or for that big venture? So that's my money past, present, and future. Does that kind of make sense for everybody? It helps put a little bit different framework around it instead of just saying that I need to have, or I'm just going to sit down and create a budget every month and look at it. And a lot of times it gets foggy. Look at it more often than that. Have any of you guys heard of mint.com?
That's great for
Yes. Super easy. If you want to have a place to go and look at where your money is going on a regular basis, so easy to do your put in your information for your online banking, your credit cards, everything else. It'll track it all in one place for you automatically, and it will help you maintain an idea of where your money's going on a regular basis. So this is ours. That's all set up and everything. I'm just going to go and flip over here and show you transactions. A lot of things that for my wife, paying my father-in-law back for a loan. But we've got a lot of different things on here. But the beautiful thing about this is that it tracks itself for the most part. The worst part about having a budget, it used to be creating a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet and having to go back and categorizing everything, and it took forever. With this, it's much more easy, much more straightforward to go through and look at what you're spending. And my favorite part is this trends piece. Oh, by the way, this is free. So that may be the best part about it. But if you want to look at your trends and see what your net income is like over time, for me, data is really only valuable over long periods of time. You can have a great month, you can have a bad month, but how are you doing generally? This is our kind of net income graph over the past few months. And you can see in October, we were, this always bounces me back. In October, we ran a net negative $5,500. Well, that's, I can tell you exactly where that was. That was in Seattle and Vancouver. Karen had a conference in Seattle. Karen's my wife. So I went with her, and we went to Vancouver for a week after that. Had a great time. But it was money we'd planned to spend, and so I knew we were going to run a net negative that month, but it was money that we had already set aside. The goal is to have more of these positive months than negative months over time. And if you're tracking it, the virtue of you starting to track this, your financial situation will get better. Don't know why that is. It always is how it is. Once you know that you have to, once a week, look at what you did last week and look forward at the next week, you're going to make better decisions on a daily basis just because you don't want to have to look at the results sometimes. So, questions about budgeting or anything like that? Again, Mint, I think, is a great tool. Really encourage you guys to use it. It's free, good people. Trying to get them to develop an advisor site so I can use this with all of our clients. I have all of our clients on it, but I can't get the data. I want to be able to get the data. I want to be able to see what they're doing too. So that's my short spiel about budgeting, I think. Nope, wrong one. How do I strike through? Yes?
Is it harder to, I know this might be a stupid question, but is it harder to do that and to keep on track with that if your income is not on a regular basis?
Good question. Yes, it's harder to do it, but I think it's probably even more important to do it when you don't have a regular income, just because it is, if you don't have a steady income, it just makes that so much more critical that you stay on top of where your money is going out on a regular basis. So yes, it's harder. You can't sequence things quite as well. If you start a business, you will learn that this is the great challenge of having a small business is, how can I not strike through this? Oh, we're going to shadow it. See if that does anything. No. The great challenge of having a small business is managing your business's cash flow. For all of you entrepreneurs out there, and I know there's a bunch of you in the room, cash flow is more important than, I always say cash flow is more important than income. Cash flow is more important than profitability for a small business. Cannot tell you how many times we've worked with people who had small businesses that were profitable that went out of business because they didn't manage their cash flow well. So, meaning they just didn't have cash in the bank to pay their bills while they were waiting to receive money for stuff that they did. So, I always say to people, I hate rules of thumb from financial planning. I think this is all very specific business. General rule of thumb about having an emergency reserve should be 3 months of your spending. If I spend $2,000 a month, I should have at least $6,000 in a savings account in case something crazy happens. If you have variable incomes, that number should probably be bigger. So cash is your friend and cash is king is the old investment saying. Not because it's such a great investment, but it's because it allows you to withstand financial storms and allows you to take advantage of opportunity when it presents itself. Does that help to answer your question? But yeah, it's going to be more complex. All right.
Question about
Please.
that budgeting. A lot of students are going to graduate school. How would that apply to them if they're not actually going out there in the world and still having to do it?
Right. It's interesting. I'm not sure. In grad school, you get your master's degree, you live off a stipend, right? Is that kind of how that works, John? Okay. I'm trying to think. I have a couple of friends who are getting their PhDs at the University of Colorado in it's not University of Colorado, it's CSU in north of Denver. But they're both had that trauma of living off of a salary and then going to living off of a stipend. It's much tougher to take that financial step back than you would think. But start now while your capital requirements are low, and that will help your experience much more. dealing financially with your college experience. So if you don't, I wouldn't go out and buy a new car, for instance, if I were going to go and live off of a stipend. I want to really keep my fixed expenses low so that I still have some flexibility to be able to do things while I'm in that program. Because, yeah, that's a tough one. I'm sorry, John. I haven't thought my way through that one a lot, and I feel myself stumbling. So I'd have to think about that some more.
I mean, it's not that different from where they are now.
Right.
They borrow the money, or they have the money to pay for the education. They have to probably be living off campus.
Right.
There will be rent. There will be similar expenses.
Sure.
So a lot of the same things you have said, you would find. They do have fixed costs.
Right.
They have money past, present, future, no matter what.
Sure. And I would say avoid the temptation to borrow against your future as much as possible. I think your college loans are a great investment in your future, and probably even your master's school, but try not to get in a bunch of credit card debt, because that's money you're eventually going to have to pay back later at interest. So it's very dangerous. It can get away from you, and I'll give you a cautionary tale about that in a minute.
Well, at least with law school, I know the loans you get cover your living expenses for rent and food and stuff like that.
Okay.
Which is equally scary.
Right. No, definitely. It's an intimidating thought, but I think it goes to point one on my theory of financial planning is, have a plan. The happiest people I know, the people who make the best financial decisions, are the people who have the clearest vision of what their future is going to be like. I don't feel like I can overstate that. So being willing to make short-term sacrifices for long-term goals is a huge thing. And so, going to law school and borrowing that money to cover your living expenses is a huge short-term sacrifice, because you could go out and you could get a job now and have a pretty good income. But if you really want to be a lawyer or do something that requires that law degree, making that sacrifice now is going to pay dividends a couple of times over down the line, because it makes the tough decisions easier. Kind of like I said, looking at everything once a week makes your daily decisions easier. Having a really clear vision of what you want your future life to be about makes a lot of those daily decisions easier. Let me give you guys an exercise about this future visioning that we do with a lot of our clients. It's the 3 scenarios, and I can email the more elaborate version of this to you so that you can give it to everybody. You can just email it to them. But the 3 questions, in very short, are if I had enough money to do what I want to do for the rest of my life, what would I do? If you didn't have to go to work, if you didn't have to do anything, you just had enough money, unlimited supply of money, to do what you want to do for the rest of life, what would you do? And I encourage you guys to really think deeply about this question. There's a very interesting thing that happens in your brain when you set yourself towards a goal. How many of you know about the reticular activating system of your brain? Okay, so I was hoping nobody would raise their hands, because I'm probably not going to explain it really right. But my understanding of how this works is it's kind of the gateway to our awareness in our brain. And so if I were to tell you to look for, it's like a search feature, but it's searched by what we're aware of and what we're focused on. So if I told you to find the blue things in the room, you might not have noticed them before, but just by telling your brain that, they start to pop out at you. There was a girl I used to ride to high school with. I'm from Lockport. I'm from down the bayou, for anybody who's from around here. And I used to ride to school with Amy. And Amy, she decided she wanted to Dodge Neon when we were in high school. And she started seeing them everywhere on the way to school, just because she decided that's the kind of car that she wanted. Not so much that they had more out there, you just became aware of them. The really powerful thing about looking at what you want your future to be about is not so much that whether it's God or the quantum or whatever, I just know that this works. The clearer you are about what you want your life to be about, the universe conspires to make it happen. So focus on that clarity and be real clear with yourself about it. The other thing I find about this is that people tend not to dream outside of their capabilities. When clients come to us to talk about the things that they really want to do, they're often well within their reach. They haven't given themselves permission to think about it, because they see the roadblocks. They don't see the ways to accomplish it. They see all the reasons that they can't do it. So a lot of what we have to do is give them permission, find ways to give them permission financially to do the things that they really want to do with life. As my friend Jude, I do actually have a friend named Jude. That's my name also, but I know, random. If you're John, you can't relate to this, but it's a very weird thing. But Jude always says that this is not a dress rehearsal. That we only get one pass-through on this, and people should be able to do exactly what they want to do with their lives. And I think that's entirely true. So focus clearly on what you want that vision to be. The second two questions, a little bit more powerful, I think, for you guys a little bit later on in your life. But if I had 5 years to live, what would I change? A lot of times people are living for the far too off future and neglecting things that they want their life to be about. But if nobody's promised tomorrow, my roommate from my senior year here at Loyola died 5 years ago, before Katrina. I'll be 32 tomorrow. Nick would have been 26 or so when he died. Nobody's promised tomorrow. So if you had 5 years to live, what would you change? Sometimes putting constraints on decisions helps things come into clearer focus for us. And then the last one is, if I had 24 hours to live, what would I regret? So if you really only had 24 hours is very little time to do anything other than kind of look back on a life well lived. So what comes, what are the emotions that come along with that, and what is it that you realize there? For Karen and I, when we did this, travel was our number one thing that came up with this. We went through this exercise right after Katrina and decided that we were just going to travel whenever we had the chance. So we've had really some amazing trips since because of that. Not so much that we seek out travel opportunities, but when they show themselves to us, we recognize them and we take advantage of them. So we've been all over the world for the past 4 years. And could I have saved more money and put more money aside for our future? Absolutely. But we made an investment in our lifestyle that was a conscious decision. I tell our clients all the time, I don't so much care what you spend your money on as long as you're consciously doing it. Be intentional about what you're doing. And so we've done that. It doesn't mean we've gone into debt to do it. Doesn't mean we've neglected other things. But whenever those daily decisions come up and people call us, hey, you guys want to go out for dinner, is the big one. For a couple, yuppies, if you will, in New Orleans, it's pretty easy to go out and spend $100 on dinner for two people. Do that twice a week is $200, times 50 weeks in a year is $10,000. $10,000 a year, you can do a lot of stuff. Get coffee once a day for, $5, $30, $40 a week. Multiplies out, it's a couple $1,000s over the course of a year. So a lot of times people can find the daily decisions. I used to get coffee a lot because I felt deprived if I didn't. It was my little way of rewarding myself. But it was a false choice. It was myself. I wasn't clear on what we really wanted to do. After we had that discussion, denying myself a coffee or going out to lunch was no longer about not fulfilling that short-term need. It was about enabling this thing that we'd really decided to do. For those of you that go on to graduate school or to start your own business, really important to be clear about that, because you're going to have to make a lot of those short-term decisions, and some of them are going to be hard, to pass up opportunities, but you've got to have a bigger yes if you're going to say no to some of those other things. And the reason I started that story was about if you had 24 hours to live. Karen's answer, she's from Chicago, was that we would have to find a way to get to Chicago so she could spend some more time with her family, something that we really weren't doing when this all started. And so now we see them 6 times a year. It's a very big priority for us, and I would have never known about it if it hadn't been for going through this type of exercise. So for looking at your future, I think this is an important and a good way to go about it. And I will email you the exercise so that you all can do that. Take some time, grab you all are seniors, right? Grab a glass of wine, whatever makes you comfortable, coffee. Spend some time with these questions, especially now that you're standing on the precipice of your future, which is an exciting and a scary place. Edwin McCain, familiar with songwriter, had this great song. It was unreleased, but right before he got his major label record deal, and I'll Be and all that stuff happened to him, he was spending a lot of time in New Orleans, and he wrote this song called Tip of My Tongue. He said, if chasing dreams is noble, well, catching them is tragic. And I always thought that was a great line about sometimes trying not to get too caught up in the excitement of everything and not enjoy actually getting the thing that you wanted to have in the first place. So 3 Qs. All right, any questions about the 3 questions or some of that philosophical rant? Okay. All right, question about investing over your working life. One of these points is number 3 is about make the most of your employer savings plans. If you all go to work for a traditional company and they have a 401k or a simple IRA or a SEP, or if you go to work for a nonprofit, if you have a 403b, if they have a match, you got to find a way to take it. It's the easiest way to get a raise that I know. 50 cents on the dollar for the first 6% that you contribute is a guaranteed 50% return of your money for each dollar that you contribute into that plan. So you've got to find a way to do that. If you're not sure about how to invest it, your plans, some of you will get really interested in investing. You'll do a lot of research online. I'll say don't do this if you don't enjoy it. Most every plan that we see these days has a prepackaged portfolio, either a lifestyle fund, that would be a conservative, a moderate, or an aggressive fund, or they have a target maturity fund, which would say be the Vanguard Target 2030 fund or the 2040 fund. That year is a targeted retirement date, and what they'll do is they'll start with a fairly aggressive portfolio, and then every year as you move towards that goal, they'll make it less aggressive and add more bonds and less stocks into it. Very easy ways to save, have a well-diversified portfolio without having to do a lot of research. The most important thing I can tell you about investing is that you need to be diversified. The trouble, concentration magnifies risk, leverage magnifies risk. If you just bought one company's stock, you could either do great, you could buy Google and have it do wonderful, or you could buy Enron or WorldCom before everything happens and you have nothing at the end. So the easy and wonderful thing about mutual funds is that instead of buying one, you buy 250 companies. And it's fully managed for you by a professional. They take a fee out, 1% a year roughly on a mutual fund. And it's very worthwhile in the sense that you get professional management with diversification. If you want even lower expenses than that, index funds are good for that. Exchange-traded funds are ways, if they have them available on your plan, to own an S&P 500 index fund, has 500 different stocks in it, the 500 largest companies in America, with very little management fee because it just tracks the index. You had a question about that?
I did, yeah. But when you buy stocks, you have to buy a minimum of 100 stocks, right?
You don't have to buy. This question is about if you were going to go and buy Google, that you don't have to buy what they would call a round lot. You don't have to go buy 100 shares. It's just much more expensive from a transaction cost standpoint if you do. If I go and buy 20 shares of Google, I'm going to pay a lot more per share than somebody who buys 100. Stocks trade in batches of 100, and so if you get XYZ company that's trading at $5, well, if I have to spend $500 is one thing, but if you get Google at a couple $100 a share, it's several $1,000 trade, so it's a very different perspective. I'm very much of the mindset that I can give you a lot of technical stuff about this, but basically that you can't beat the market. It's very difficult to beat the market, and it's practically impossible to do it over the long run without inside information or some other illegal form or means. The very good friend of mine, one of the guys in my study group, his name is Dave Deming. Dave was an analyst for First American Securities, which is a small cap mutual fund manager in the Midwest. His job was to follow 6 companies, 60 hours a week. That's all Dave did. He had to know everything that he could know about 6 companies, their suppliers, and their customers. So if a steel shipment was going to come in late and it was going to affect this manufacturing company, Dave knew it because he was having dinner with the managers or because he was hanging around the factory and people chat. And he had lunch at the same places that all the workers went to lunch. So it's very difficult from a computer screen miles away to spend a couple of hours a week and look at stocks and try to beat somebody who has 10 hours a week to follow that company. And that's just a small company. If you want to get to a large company, like a Google, for instance, they have a couple hundred analysts whose sole job is to track Google and know everything there is to know about Google and what's happening with their company. So if you're reading your K1 reports online on your E-Trade account, it's going to be very difficult for you over the long term to beat the market. Business is risk-reward, right? And a lot of people all look at the money they put into things, and they don't necessarily evaluate the time that they put into things as an opportunity cost. Unless you really love doing that stuff, I'll say you're much better off buying a diversified portfolio, keeping it well-balanced, and holding it over the long term. That's always been my personal theory. The great book, Random Walk Down Wall Street, if any of you are really interested in that topic and kind of the theory that goes behind that.
Could you tell us kind of how specifically to go about buying into a mutual fund or something like that?
There are a lot of places to do that. If you want, you go directly to the fund families, and it's usually the least expensive place to do it. You can go to Vanguard.com, T. Rowe Price. When I started my career, I worked at Janus Mutual Funds, which was a fairly aggressive active manager in Denver, Colorado. You can go on their websites, set up an account. You can fund it all online. It's super easy now. Vanguard or Fidelity, honestly, would probably have the broadest range of options for you, and they're very inexpensive to set up from an annual maintenance fee. I'll say I wouldn't invest anything into a mutual fund or a market-based fund that I needed in less than, at a minimum, 3 years, if not 5, because you want the flexibility to be able to ride out a market downturn like the one that we've had. The worst thing about the stock market I can say is that you can't go anywhere and get away from what happened in the Dow Jones on any given day. I go to my dentist's office now, and they have this big flat screen. It's always on CNN, and on the bottom right, along with the headlines about whatever horrible thing is happening in the world, is a ticker with the S&P 500, with Dow Jones Industrials, and the NASDAQ. And clients call us often until we train them not to. They always say, well, what's the market doing today? I say, I don't know. And I say, well, what do you mean you don't know? Like, doesn't matter. And they say, well, what do you mean it doesn't matter? You manage our money. I said, well, it doesn't matter what it's going to do today. It matters what it's going to do for the next 30 years. And I have very little confidence about what it's going to do today. I have a lot of confidence about what the next 30 years are going to be like. So have a long-term focus on any money that you're going to invest into the market, and don't micromanage it, because a lot of happiness is focusing on things you can control versus things you can't control. I'll tell you, the market is the one thing that you can't control, and it's the one thing people lose a lot of sleep over. This great company called Dalbar does this research study about investor behavior. They haven't come out with 2009's yet, but I'm dying to see it. The 2008 Dalbar study showed that the average equity mutual funds over the past 10 years returned an average of about 8.5%. However, the average equity mutual fund investor's actual return was about 2.5%. Well, I can account for 1.5% of that is going to go into taxes and fees. But the rest of it all has to do with bad investor behavior. It has to do with selling when things get bad. It has to do with buying when things look really good. Warren Buffett, who I'm sure you've all have heard of, very famous investor, his famous quote is, you should be greedy when others are fearful and be fearful when others are greedy. And this, I haven't been in the business that long, but it's already played out twice in my life. And I started at Janus in 2000 during the tech boom and saw that collapse around a lot of investors. And then I saw over the past few years with the real estate run-up and then the bust that's ensued have shown me time and again that that's absolutely the case. The other behavioral thing about investing in the market is, if you think about it, if you want to buy a car, do you want to buy when things are tough for the automobile industry, or do you want to buy when things are good? Because you probably get a better price when things are tough, all the car deals we've had over the last year. The same line of thinking goes into buying equities or stocks over the long run. Yet people are very reluctant to buy them when their prices are low, and they want to buy them. They stumble all over themselves to buy them when the prices are high. So take the emotion out of it as much as possible, invest on a consistent basis into a diversified portfolio, and allow it to run for the long term. I can talk about that stuff all night. I don't think it's the most critical thing for you guys at your point. Managing cash flow will be far more important, have a much more direct relationship on you and your money than anything you can do about investing at this point. But if you're fortunate enough to have some opportunity to do it, I think it's a great place to start and learn. And through your company retirement plans is often where you'll get the opportunity to do that. Last thing about retirement plans at work is that you can save more than you think you can save. Even if you're not sure about how it's going to work from a cash flow standpoint, put in a couple % when you start. People live off the money that hits their checking account, not necessarily the entire amount that they're paid. So if you can get that money out before it gets to your checking account, that forced savings will grow for you over time, and chances are you're not going to miss it. Promise you, 1% of your income is such a small slice. Find a way to get that up to 10 or 15% over the early parts of your career, and it will pay you major dividends in terms of flexibility down the road. All right. Loans and grants for starting, or any other questions about investing? Is that good? Okay. Loans and grants for starting a small business is a really tough one. There's not a whole lot out there, I have to say. And even some of the places that you think are designed to help small businesses will give you the runaround a little bit. I will tell you the places that you should look are the Small Business Administration. SBA has some loan programs that are pretty good. The problem is they're going to want, just like everybody else, they're going to want really good credit scores. They're going to want to see what other assets you have, and they're going to want to have a personal guarantee. The terms are going to look unappealing to you, but that's because they're small business loans. Most small businesses fail within the first couple of years. And again, not necessarily because they're not profitable enterprises. They fail because they are undercapitalized, meaning they don't have enough money going in the first place. I'm sure all of you have heard the saying that banks will loan you money if you don't need it. That's absolutely true. So get yourself to a place where you don't necessarily need their loan, and use debt as a leverage to magnify returns, not debt as a way that I'm going to go and start this business and build it from scratch. Very few people are going to loan to you for that. I'll also say capital-intensive businesses are much easier to get loans for than ideas-based businesses or service-based businesses, because there's some banks want collateral. Banks love collateral. They want to have something they can loan against. Your house, investment portfolio, something along those lines. Going out and getting a loan without any collateral for a service-based business is almost impossible. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't keep trying. The United States Small Business Administration is going to be your best bet for grants and other support services. I would say you need to work ruthlessly on your business plan if you're going to do this, and find a peer network to help vet your ideas. You need to be able to have a support network of other people who are going through the same process, people who maybe are a stage or so down the line from you who already have a business, and to buy them lunch and get them talk through your idea with them. Every business owner I've ever met is more than eager to help other people get into business, and will give you their candid feedback on some of the struggles that they've had to go through. And it will be a good investment of $30 or $40 to take them out and buy a couple of sandwiches to be able to pick their brain a little bit. Talk to your bankers. If you've got a good banking relationship, that's great. If you don't, developing a relationship with that loan officer, because they're the ones who have to go in front of that loan committee and get those small loans approved every time you go back for more money. So you've got to be very forthcoming with that person, and you've got to let them help you out as much as possible. They'll be able to give you tips and guidance. They want to make the loan too. That's how they get paid. But their banks are very reluctant to lend money, especially now. So it's much more difficult to get loans than it has been at any time in the past 5 or 10 years. I would also say if you're going to use family resources to start a business, go to a source like Virgin Money to document everything. I'm not opposed to having your parents or your grandparents finance a business if it's something that you're really passionate about, but let somebody else put the terms together and have there be a legal document surrounding that transaction. Family is difficult enough. Not a huge fan of borrowing money within that environment, but Virgin Finance or Virgin Money, I never remember which one it is, they actually have tools where they will go through and create a loan document for you, create a repayment schedule, and give you and and your folks or your grandparents or your uncle or whatever, something that you both can sign off on and have, and you'll feel better about it and they'll feel better about it. What else can I say about starting a business? There's a place here in New Orleans called the Idea Village that I honestly I haven't talked to a single entrepreneur that has had a really great experience with them. Give it a shot, but nobody I know they've been able to help. Yeah, I think honestly the community of entrepreneurs is going to be the best place that you will get good feedback from. Talk to the people who are just down the road from you and let them give you their share of experiences. Any questions about starting a business? I mean, it's a big undertaking. This is something I think is very important, is what they call maintaining the corporate veil. If you have personal assets, you can't run your business out of your personal checking account. First of all, it's bad business. But second of all, it exposes you to personal liability. If I have XYZ Corporation and I set up a corporate entity, part of the reason people set those up is for credit protection. In the event that something goes bad or a business goes out of business, it helps me protect my personal assets by saying, well, no, those weren't assets of the business. This is my personal stuff. But if I keep paying for things for my business out of my personal accounts and I'm writing things out of my personal checking account for the business without transferring into that business account first and documenting that shareholder loan, I put my personal assets at risk so that creditors could potentially come and attach things like your investments or other personal assets that you have. Maintain your corporate books very diligently, just like your personal ones, and keep them separate as much as possible. So get an LLC established, very easy to do, very inexpensive to do, and keep everything separated to manage some of that risk for yourselves. Might not be important now. You feel like I don't have anything to get sued for. Down the line, it'll be very important if you're successful. Yes?
Could you go over the specific steps to filing for an LLC?
Yeah, it's really straightforward. You can use. I'm very wary of a lot of low-cost online service providers. LegalZoom is the one that advertises on ESPN all the time, so they're the one I'm familiar with. They say they'll do it for a couple $100. I would bet that you could get somebody at Loyola's Law Clinic to do it for you pretty inexpensively for a similar price. Even if not, you can find a lawyer, and it'd probably be worth $500 to $700, maybe $1,000 to have them draft your articles of incorporation. If you have a partner, this is critical. Get your partnership arrangement established. Determine what the rules are that you operate by, and file it with the state. You can do some of this on your own. If we go to the, if you're going to do this in Louisiana, the Louisiana Secretary of State's website, and look at the corporation's database, and search by name of whatever you want to call your company. If you know what you want the name to be, I would encourage you, I guess this is caps only, to go and get your name now. Even if you're not going to do anything with it immediately, you can still register it. So Upperline Wealth Management is DPA that I have. It's not in operation. I work for another company, but it's a name I've always had for my company. And this cost me $60 to do, plus somebody had to notarize it. And then and it's mine for 10 years. Whether I put it into commerce right now or not, I've got the legal rights to it in the state of Louisiana. So it's very easy to do, very inexpensive. So just go and grab your name is one thing. And there will be some filing fees that go along with you putting out your LLC. You have to register that with the Secretary of State. You have to file an annual report, which I think is $35 a year. Then again, very small expenses for if you've got a name you're really attached to, go get it. Domain names especially. Very difficult to come by good domain names now without paying a ton of money. So if you have a domain that you really want to go, set up your account on GoDaddy or whatever service you want to use, $10 for the year, reserve your real estate. And then you're going to need those LLC paperwork every time you go and open a new account. Open a new checking account, a new loan, they're going to want those documents, and that'll be part of that file. Anything else about starting a business? Very exciting, very scary to do. The very good friends, I work with a lot of entrepreneurs. Very good friends of mine started a business after college, and they feel very fortunate that they started after college because they could live off of a much smaller amount of money than it takes after you get out a few years, you buy a house, get used to living a certain lifestyle, and then say, okay, I'm going to leave my salary and go start a business. A lot easier to do that when you're used to maybe a lower standard of living than you might end up being on later on in life if you just go down in the corporate world for a while. And worst case scenario, it all falls apart and go to the beach for a weekend and come back and find a job. It's a lot easier to do when you're you guys' age. I'm so old. I'm 32. All right. Anything else on starting business? Does that hit all the points you wanted? All right.
I asked you that other question about capitalization.
Right. Yeah, how do you know what's enough? That's a tough one. Most businesses fail because they underestimate the amount of time it'll take them to have positive cash flow. And notice I don't say profitable. Because businesses can often become profitable very quickly, but knowing how long it takes to have enough cash coming in to meet your expenses plus generate a profit or have money left over for you to spend in those future months is a difficult thing to know. I will say it always costs more than you think it's going to cost. So you need to build in, when you're writing out that business plan of what your bottom line expenses are, you need to build in some fudge factor, if you will. 20% would probably not be a bad idea. Be very honest with yourself about that too, and what your living expenses are going to be. It's hard to see having less than 5 to 6 months of your operating expenses in some type of capital account. Now, there are different ways to get capital. There's capital that you've saved, and there's capital that you can borrow. And there's all kinds of different kinds of borrowing. I would say just be careful not to try to start your business on your credit cards, because that is a very difficult way to start a business. It's very expensive debt, and it's personally signed for debt, so there's no getting rid of it if the business doesn't work out. Even through bankruptcy, all those laws got changed in 2004, and it's very difficult to discharge those debts now. Yes?
Well, could you open up, like, your business with your business's credit cards? Or, like,
You can. I just think it's going to be, it'll probably be a bit of a challenge for you to get a business credit card without a personal guarantee on it. I've got clients with very successful businesses, and that personal guarantee is very difficult to get away as long as you're using other people's money. Until you're at a couple $100 million a year in revenue, they're going to want a personal guarantee on any new loan that you go and get for your business. Meaning that if the business can't repay it, then you've got to repay it. So that's something that's very difficult to get away from. So don't be afraid of it, but you got to have a plan and know that you're willing to go for it and what you're putting on the line to do it. Risk reward is always in balance. It's greater risk, the rewards are greater, not just financially. Sometimes just the ability to decide when you're going to work and when you're not going to work, that you don't have to ever ask for a day off, is worth it. That help?
Yeah, I think I don't know the answer, but
Yeah, it's such a tough thing. In capital-intensive businesses, I think you need more capital as well. So if you're going to go out and open a restaurant or a live music venue, and it's going to be a $30,000 renovation on the space, it just means that's so much more capital you have to have in order to go out and start that. And again, either saved or borrowed. All kinds of capital out there. All right, credit score versus your FICO score, what's the difference? It's kind of the difference between making a copy and a Xerox. The FICO score is a brand name for one of the 3 credit bureaus' reporting mechanisms, but it's the one that's kind of become popular out there. Credit score is really just a snapshot of a moment in time of what a bank thinks or what the credit scoring bureau thinks your risk is. It allows you to put you on a continuum with everybody else and say the better credit score you have, the better terms you'll be able to get. So what builds your credit score? How much debt do you have is an important, very important part of this. Really, if you ever want to know what your credit score is, I'm big on free websites. Freecreditreport.com is not free. Don't know how they can advertise that. But it's annualcreditreport.com is the government's website. You can go every year, get one free credit report from each of the 3 major credit reporting bureaus. That's not what I'm going to show you today. This is another one. Credit Karma is a actually free website that you can go into. No, I want to log in. Thank you. You can create your account, put your information in. Nothing's really free, right? So how they earn their money is by selling advertisements on the website or trying to get you to, get you to go and change credit card offers, or here they're advertising a Chase Freedom credit card. So that's how they make their money, is by selling ad space on the website. But this actually will give you a free credit score once a month on the website. And so you can see my score, which I'm going to tell it to update. So TransUnion is one of the 3 credit reporting bureaus. This is their website. So I'll tell it I'll agree. It's going to go and check my credit score, and we'll see if I've gone up or not, or I'm still the same. But once a month, you can go and update that number. Things generally stay pretty consistent on your credit score. You can see mine was down here to 609 in just a few months ago. We refinanced our condo, and by process of going through doing that, we had a number of hits on our credit at once. A lot of inquiries within a short period of time make banks nervous, and so we'll have a negative effect on your credit report for the short term. Because if they feel like you're looking in a bunch of different places to borrow money, they don't all necessarily know. I could go and open up 5 accounts at once, and when they would really want me to have $10,000, I end up with $50,000 just from 5 different banks. So that's a big part of that. Part of this was some negative information that was erroneous that I finally got removed off of my credit file. So I now have a fairly good score, whereas I had a pretty bad score not too long ago.
How did you get that removed? You proved you send them letters?
It's an arduous process. You have to contact each credit bureau to see what's on the file, and then you have to, part of the credit reforms is that creditors have to prove the debt is real. So if you ever see those signs up for, fix your credit overnight or something, and like the neutral ground or stapled to the telephone pole, the easiest way to boost your credit score in the short term is to go and file complaints or say, I need you to prove this is a legal debt or a legitimate debt, because they all get removed from your credit score, and it takes the banks 30 or 45 days to prove it again. So you have a window of time where your credit looks fantastic. I'm serious. That's exactly how those places work. You don't need to pay somebody $200 to do that. So if you want to game the system, that's how it happens. Banks have gotten a lot smarter about that, but it's still how it works. So as soon as you do that, it's incumbent upon the debtor to prove it's a legitimate debt. And this was something that should have been taken off my credit score from years ago, because bad things can stay on your file for 7 years. So 7 years or so from now is 2002, 2001. I'll give you a cautionary tale about the use of credit. I came from a family. We didn't have a lot of money. I came to Loyola. I was a Nation Scholar, so I had a full scholarship. It was the only reason I was able to come here. My dad's a manager of a tire store. My mom cleans houses. So not very middle-class folks. Living paycheck to paycheck, working hard to get by. I got to Loyola, was around much more affluent friends, people whose parents were writing checks for college, and I kind of wanted to keep up. And I got here, and there were tables set up all over the place offering credit cards. I'm sure you've all gone through that. And so I took them. I was all about them. And so I ended up with a few credit cards, and over the course of a few years managed to rack up a decent amount, $10,000 or so of credit card debt, and bought a computer, which was $2,500 in like 1998. I mean, it's so much more expensive than they are now for like this big desktop computer. And I made a bad relationship decision, which is part of this also. And so combination of factors led me in this large part of debt when I graduated from college, which when I got my first job, I just wasn't able to service it. I couldn't pay that and my living expenses and do anything. And so I ended up defaulting on a few credit cards and the computer loan in 2001. And somebody who has a degree in finance, who knows some things about money, and lives with the ramifications of that for the past 8 or so years. 2001, 2002, kind of got things together, got things back on track, but it still takes 7 years for that negative history to come off of your credit report. There's no two ways about it. So without my wife's excellent credit, we wouldn't have been able to buy the condo that we bought a year and a half ago. We wouldn't have been able to get a car. When I moved back to New Orleans from Colorado, banks wouldn't even open a checking account for me. My credit was so bad. They wouldn't give me a place to deposit my money. So managing your credit is so important and so critical. I can't tell you how much money I've spent in trying to deal with that in time. You've got to stay on top of it and find a way to manage it. A lot of that is having good habits and, again, knowing what your future is about, not having your future be short-term things. One of my favorite questions to ask clients is, what is your earliest memory around money? And so I encourage you to take a second and think about that. When you were a child, what's the first thing you remember about money? Some of it's parents having discussions that they don't think that we know they're having about money, or the arguments they're having about money. I've heard lots of great stories about this. Mine is, we were at the grocery store. I used to always go with my mom. For some reason, my dad was with us. And we did the whole shopping trip, and we were at the checkout line. And I got a candy bar, or whatever it was I was going to get out of the checkout line. And so I took it and handed it to my mom. She put it on the counter. And my dad took it and put it back. And he was like, "You don't need that." And my mom took it from him. And she looked him right in the eye. I still remember this so clearly. And she said, "Hank," which is my dad's name, "Hank, isn't $1 worth the happiness of your child?" And it may not have been the message she was trying to give me, but I got the message. And for me, money and buying stuff was about happiness, and it was for a very long time. It wasn't until I was able to change my frame to these longer-term things that I really got over that. But it's still with me to this day. If I'm down, it's really easy to just get online and buy something on Amazon and kind of be a little pick-me-up. Like you'll hear shopping therapy, or retail therapy, I think is probably the way they say it. But, our lessons about money we've learned all our lives, and a lot of them are sunk in at a very early age. So I encourage you to think about what messages you got about money. The kids of some of our wealthiest clients have a very interesting story. It wasn't their earliest memory, but this woman earns $800,000 to $900,000 a year from her business and took her 2 twin daughters to Las Vegas, who are now 23 or 24. And she gave them both $25 or $10 and said, "Just go put it in the slot machine." And they both said, "No, thanks, Mom, we'll just keep it." And she said, "Well, why don't you just go put it in the slot machine? Well, it's not your money. I'll just go and play it." And they're like, "No, we don't want to do that." And she never understood that until I had the discussion with them, and I brought them through that same exercise. What were your earliest memories around money? Their earliest memories around money were having to do with the parents' divorce. And they were not at any risk financially, but they felt at risk financially. They'd seen other friends go through divorce and have to change schools and lose houses and things like that. And they are very risk averse to this day because of the early memories they had about money. So I encourage you to look at, what do you think is true about money? What are the lessons you've learned about money? And kind of hold them up to the light and say, how are those things affecting how I interact with money on a daily basis? Because sometimes just being aware of some of those lessons has a big impact on what you're doing on a regular basis. And being aware of it is the first step to changing some of those behaviors. All right, so I don't remember how I got there. Oh, yeah, credit versus FICO. So managing your credit score ruthlessly is really important. I would really just set up a reminder in your calendar once every 4 months to check annualcreditreport.com, pull one of your credit bureaus every 4 months, so that way you've kind of got a rolling look at what's happening out there. Credit Karma is free. I like their website. There's another one, is Quizzle. I think that's the... Oh, that's not right. Quizzle. And I think Quizzle is owned by Quicken, the people who do the Quicken loans and the financial management software and everything. So you can, yeah, that's me. You can go on Quizzle and get your credit score there too from a different credit bureau. So ultimately, I think some of these things will be out there and free. I think it's an incredible shame that this credit score thing has become so important in our culture without the banks releasing to us exactly how it's computed. There's a lot of information about their available credit versus credit used, your payment history, all those things factor into this, but nobody's ever really released how it's all computed, and I think that's very unfair for consumers. But your ability to borrow money at favorable terms over the course of your lifetime will have a huge impact. So please learn from my mistake and try to manage that over the long term.
But if you don't owe money, you can't actually, if you don't borrow money, you can't get a credit score, right? I mean, if some of these people don't have any,
Sure.
how are they going to establish their credit?
The best way I can suggest for you to, I don't know about that. The best way I can suggest for you to build your credit is to get a credit card. And I've warned you all about the dangers of credit cards, but get one and use it smartly. Use it for a few charges every month and pay it off. If you all have checking accounts, get a credit card with the same bank that does your checking. Most of our personal household financials are run out of Chase. And so we have a Chase credit card, and it's so easy because it's all on the one website, it's all on the one internet banking, and I can tell it to transfer money from checking or savings to pay off the credit card all in one place. A lot of life, I think, we overcomplicate. Keep your money as simple as possible. Try to deal with one institution if possible. So get one, use it a little bit, pay it off regularly is the easiest way to build a credit score. If you need to build it very quickly and you have a couple of $1,000s, I would say you can go and get a secured loan from a bank. Say you have $2,500, go get the bank to lend you $2,000 and say you don't have any credit history, you can get a secured loan. So I'll deposit $2,000 in a certificate of deposit here, and you guys loan me $2,000, so I'm trying to build my credit score. Do that, make your payments for a few months, and then go and pay off that balance with the money that's in savings. It will have cost you a little bit in interest to have done that, but it will help to build your credit score because it will show that you had a loan, that you made your payments on time, and that you paid it off early. So those three things will go into a big factor. We refinanced our mortgage a little while ago, and that was a big plus for us. My car, Father's Day a year ago, that huge rainstorm, like 6.5 inches of rain, my car was parked in front of our condo on St. Charles and got totaled because it got flooded. Huge boon for my credit score because it showed I had a lease and it got paid off early. That's all it said. Even though it was insurance proceeds, big boost to my credit score. So get joint accounts. This won't work for much longer, but it still works for now. Get your parents to add you on as an authorized signer on their credit cards. Now, again, you got to not screw this up because they're your parents, but get them to add you on their credit cards. Even if you don't use it, it will track to your credit score, and if this is probably the more important thing, if they're good about paying on time, it will benefit your credit score by showing you as an authorized user of an account that's being paid off and being paid on time. One of the biggest things that helped me when we were trying to rebuild my credit was Karen, with her great credit, adding me on to her credit cards. Even cards we never used, it was a big plus. So those types of things are ways for you to do that. And for those of you who have student loans, you should have some credit history in there. But I would say open a credit card, even if you're not going to use it a whole lot. It builds your credit, and one of the factors on I should have left Credit Karma open. Okay, good. I'm still logged in. So if I look at my credit report and do my report card, this utilization thing is not right. That's part of the thing I'm trying to have them fixed. But on-time payments, see 100%, so that's positive. It gives you these letter grades. So D, average age of open credit lines, 2 years, 9 months. Because we refinanced the mortgage, that's very short term. Got the new car lease because my other car flooded, that's a new one. We open a new airline credit card, things like that. What they want to see are long relationships with creditors. So that's a real positive. This total accounts thing being an F at 9, I have a dispute with this because that's a number of accounts. If I open another credit account and went to 10, my score would improve there. Having multiple lines of credit open improves your score. Again, not critical, but it does improve your score. This hard credit inquiries thing, that's what I was talking to you guys about with the when we were applying for the mortgages and the new car loan and everything. Those hard inquiries do have a bit of a negative effect on your score. So I've had 9 inquiries over the last 2 years. We bought the condo 2 years ago in April. We refinanced it about a year ago. Got a new credit card in there, got a new car loan in that time. So all those things add up. If you can let those stable off for a while, the better for you. And what they're doing is looking at blocks in time. Debt to income ratio, this is a positive thing. If you've got a lot of debt and not a lot of income, that's obviously a bad sign. If you have good income and not a lot of debt, they're much more likely to lend money to you. Yes?
Is it true that if you pay off one of your cars and then close the account, your credit score lowers?
If you close the account. Part of this factor is this one up here that I kind of glossed over because I don't think it's right. This credit card utilization. If you have, say, $2,000 of available credit and you were using $1,000, it showed you had $1,000 of available credit. But if I go and close off that credit card that has $1,000 on it, if I had maybe two $1,000 credit cards, if I close that account, instead of having $2,000 of available credit and $1,000 of credit outstanding, I close off my $1,000 credit card I wasn't using. I now have $1,000 of available credit and $1,000 of credit outstanding. So my ratio goes from 50% to 100% immediately. And that ratio is what they're looking at, and what they're saying it can hurt you. So pay it off, but don't close it unless you have to, or it's costing you a lot of money to keep it open. Yes?
I was told that asking for stuff like deferrals on student loans would affect your credit.
I don't think it does, especially if you're in school. So like if you have an in-school deferment, I'm pretty certain that doesn't affect it at all. After I graduated and I was having all these financial problems, I had a forbearance, which is the government basically saying, okay, for a year, we're just not going to ask you for money. You just pick it up later. We're still going to charge you interest. I don't think that's that bad, but it's still not good. But if you're in school and you're getting in-school deferment or something like that, that shouldn't have a negative effect on your credit at all.
Okay.
Not certain about that, but I'm a good 95%. All right, so credit. Got that. As far as paying back your student loans, I would say if you're federal student loans, it's not a big deal. I think for the most part, unless you really hate having debt, carrying those student loans at lower rates of interest is not going to be that bad a deal. If you are very debt averse and the idea that you owe money to somebody else keeps you awake at night, knock yourself out and find a way to pay them off early. But for the most part, I think you can kind of just let it ride, make your payments on time, and allow that to build your credit history over time. It's a worthwhile investment. Chances are there are a lot of other things you can do with that money that will be better for you financially. Putting additional money in savings, setting some money aside for retirements and your qualified plans, paying cash for your cars instead of financing them is huge. If you're going to go and get a used car loan, at 9.5%, if you don't have a well-established credit history, your student loans are at 5%. We'll put that money towards the car and pay your student loans at 5%. It'd be a better deal for you over the long term. Now, if you have private student loans, that's probably a little bit different deal because your interest rates are going to be higher. I'll say attack debts. If you've got a lot of debt out there, figure out what's the highest interest rate and attack it first. Make the minimum payments on everything else and pay everything you can towards the highest interest debt. And allow that, because that will earn you the best, quote, return over the long period of time. And then go down the line. Does that, y'all kind of get that? Okay. Yes?
What's the average minimum balance for student loans?
I'm not entirely sure what you're asking.
Like you were saying, pay the minimum each.
Oh, right. Oh, it depends. If you've got federal student loans, there are a few different formulas that you get to choose when you enter repayment. 6 months after graduation, it's like the worst piece of mail you ever get. Like, congratulations on graduating. We've been notified by your institution you've graduated. Now, here are your choices on starting to pay us back. You're just finally getting used to having a little bit of money coming in. There's kind of a standard plan. There is an income graduated plan, which I'm a fan of for people who are starting out, where it'll base off of your income. And then there's one that will step up over time. That's a little bit longer period of time, but what it does is mine just went up from $96 to $101 a month that I pay on my student loans. And I finished with about $23,000 in student loans. So if I want to give you a ballpark, that's probably about it. But the Department of Labor, it's dlservicer.ed.gov is the website for the Department of Education's direct loan servicing area. And they have calculators on there that will help you calculate the 3 different options, how long it will take you to repay it based on those options. And one thing I'll say that you should do when you set up your loans is set up your automatic payments, because they'll typically they'll reduce your interest rate by 0.5% or so if you set it up to have it automatically drafted out of your checking account instead of having to send them a check every month. It'll be easier for you, and you get a better deal on it. All right. Yeah, I don't have an awful lot to say about student loans. I just know they've been harder to get lately. Tax credits for starting businesses, and where do you find them? In Louisiana, the most important place I think you can go to is it's honestly the Lieutenant Governor's office is in charge of a lot of I'm assuming you guys are interested in like new media tax credits, some of the film stuff that's happening. The Lieutenant Governor's office has really been behind this idea of the rise of the creative class and working along those lines. They will be great advocates for you in trying to help you find these tax credits and figuring out how you qualify for them. Beyond that, unfortunately, I don't have a lot of resources for you. We've dealt with them for a few clients as far as buying the tax credits from people that had them, but I don't necessarily know how people go about getting them. That also would probably be a place where retaining a law firm that specializes in that work, it would probably pay a very good return on your investment because they can probably either tell you if your project's going to qualify or not, and then help short-circuit a lot of the mess that you might get into if you try to apply for them on your own.
We have a speaker coming in to talk about tax credits.
Oh, very good.
Just in the entertainment field, in this state we do offer credits for film and television. Is that somebody coming in to talk about that?
That's great, and that's go to the experts for that. And I'm sure Loyola probably has some other resources too, or can get you to people along those lines.
I just signed a contract to sell $150,000 worth of tax infrastructure tax credits for 404 over there, and we get 84.6 cents on the dollar for buying it. We're selling that tax credit for $147,000 to a guy like Jude. Should have thought of you.
Yeah.
Because
I wish I had $146,000 of taxes to pay.
yeah, well, you have clients, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is an investment counselor who has not to advise the time network individuals who have a lot of state tax to pay. So they can buy $1 worth of state tax credits for 85 cents. So they save 15 cents. And of course, on the $150,000, they're going to save $25,000. So it's good for us. We get the 125. We don't get the net of the gross amount. We get the net amount. That's the commission, but still, we got $125,000.
Yeah, and that's fantastic. And that's cash money for you guys to spend. It's a great return on investment for the investors. It's great for everybody. One of my favorite accountants likes to say that people hate paying taxes, which I can agree that all my clients, that's their biggest complaint, is paying taxes. But it's the best way to keep score that I know. If you're not paying taxes, you're not making money. There's just no way around it. All the good tax shelters got destroyed in the 80s, so you can't hide anymore. So paying taxes is difficult, but it's better than not having any money. All right, health insurance. Kind of gave you my brief thing on health insurance. It's so important to have a baseline of coverage. Even if you don't feel like you need the Cadillac plan, you don't get sick a lot, you're young, you're healthy, that's fine. But go out and get yourself a high deductible health insurance plan and make sure it's there for catastrophic events. We saw a fairly young guy recently max out his Blue Cross health insurance, which was something like $2 million. Was hunting in Alaska. Somehow got into a hunting accident out in the backcountry in Alaska. Had to be helicoptered from where he was to a hospital in Anchorage. Had a special flight to bring him back to Louisiana, and he ended up dying. But he ended up dying with $2 million of insurance bills paid for because he had coverage. It's a bit of a stretch, but there are a lot of examples of people who are in very bad spots because they didn't have health insurance. A lot of bankruptcies are caused by this. So for those of you that are on your parents' coverage, which I imagine is most of you still, I think that's great. Keep that as long as you can. You're going to get the boot when you graduate. Again, it's about 6 months. So what do you need to do? You need to find a job that will get you health insurance or get onto a continuation plan of some kind. Blue Cross Blue Shield in Louisiana, I think Humana, sell individual insurance policies. Assurant Health does too, but I don't know much about them. They will help you get on and get some individual coverage that will cover your baseline things. Not going to be a very rich plan, not going to have great co-payments. It's going to be kind of expensive for you. But my friend says you have to insure the things that you can least afford to lose, and your health is one of them. He means your health, your life, and your income. I'll talk about income in a minute. Life insurance for you guys is probably not that critical. I think life insurance, for the most part, should be protection for heirs. In the event that you're not that around to take care of them, create some income for them to be able to take care of themselves. But it's my opinion that most young people don't really need life insurance, or you don't need a lot of it, certainly. So don't let your friends who graduate and go start working for Northwestern Mutual sell you some very expensive whole life insurance, because they're going to try to.
The difference between whole life insurance?
Sure. So briefly on life insurance, obviously it's pretty straightforward. If you die, it pays out to your beneficiary. We have term life insurance. You're basically paying for the risk right now. Young people, fairly unlikely that you're going to die. Something catastrophic would probably have to happen for that to be the case. So life insurance is very inexpensive for you guys. I have $1 million policy on myself for $460 a year. So it's really pennies on the dollar once you have an income and a family to take care of. Whereas if you end up with something like a whole life, is what we call a cash value form of life insurance, where it builds equity, in you will, inside the policy over time, because you're paying more than the true cost of the insurance. Some of that cash goes into the account, earns a rate of interest, and levelizes the payment over the course of your entire life. It's really great. If you've got tons of cash flow, it's a great place to put some additional cash flow. Problem is, I've never really run into that many people who have all this excess cash flow that they don't have stuff that they want to do with. In my humble professional opinion, it's often an unnecessary expense for a lot of people that they get boxed into because it looks like a good deal on paper. But remember, we talked about cash is king and managing your cash flow. Whole life is anywhere from 7 to 10 times as expensive as term insurance, whereas most people only need that term insurance protection. One of my bullet points on here is number 9. It's match permanent life insurance with permanent needs. Chances are you guys don't have permanent insurance needs. We do permanent life insurance for people who have estate tax problems. We sold $8.2 million of life insurance to a guy about a year and a half ago who had this big estate tax bill because of his family business that's really grown. But that's probably the only permanent life insurance case that we dealt with last year. Other than that, everybody else gets term insurance, even the very successful people. Because if you don't, what you're doing is you're protecting your income and your ability to earn an income over the course of your working life. Yes?
So wouldn't it be kind of hard to get term insurance if you're trying to get, because I know for 6 months you're going to work on like a fishing boat in Alaska?
Oh, strangely enough, not really.
Really?
Yeah.
Same way as health?
No, not at all. Because it's kind of the law of large numbers, and it's pretty likely that you'll get hurt on that boat, but it's still pretty unlikely that you're going to die. So they don't ask you really any questions about what you do. We insure police officers all the time, and so it's not as difficult. What or life insurers are looking at is not even things that are going to hurt you, like if you had a knee replacement and it limits your mobility. They're not so concerned about that. But people who have high cholesterol, who have heart issues, diabetes, those types of things that are likely to lead to complications and maybe end up having you die. So it's kind of a different set of underwriting. They're looking at mortality, whereas your health insurer is looking at morbidity.
Okay, so health insurance does work that way. They're going to not want to insure you with things.
Absolutely. Health insurance is going to be driven a little bit more by the circumstances that you're around. However, if you're on coverage now, you do have what they call portability of coverage. So you can go and get new coverage without necessarily having to go through and prove your pre-existing conditions and all that stuff, as long as you maintain what they call it continuity of coverage. So when you drop off of your parents' plan, you get coverage within a couple of months so that you can still show that certificate of prior coverage. And they're not just saying, well, here's an unhealthy person who's trying to come out and get our health insurance. One of the big things that was in the health reform legislation that's floundering in Washington, D.C. right now was to eliminate that whole requirement, this continuity of coverage thing. Because if you fall off and then end up, you've got something like Hodgkin's disease or something that requires a lot of experimental treatment or is a major pre-existing condition, once you lose that continuity, that person will probably never be able to get health insurance coverage again. So you've got to be very careful about maintaining that over the course of your working life. So yes. Yeah. All right. Any other questions about health insurance? All right. What else we got here?
The higher the deductible, the lower the cost. You know that, right? So you'll probably buy into a plan with a high deductible, right?
Yes. Deductibles, and this is probably something that we should have on our list anyway. Deductibles. So a deductible is a risk management tool for the insurance company. For my car, which I've had 2 deductibles I've had to pay recently, I have a $1,000 deductible on my car for damage. So I'm responsible for the first $1,000 of damage, and anything above that, the insurance company has to kick in. If I had a $500 deductible, I would have to pay more for my auto insurance every 6 months. Because the insurance companies, it's more likely that I will incur a claim for the insurance company at $500 than I will be at $1,000. Right? It's just a greater amount at risk. Same thing works for your health insurance. If I have a Cadillac type of insurance plan and I have a $5 copayment to go to the doctor and $10 for prescription drugs, I'm very likely to consume a lot of health services because it's not going to cost me a lot of money to go and consume those, but it costs me a lot in terms of premium. So one way to reduce my premium is to raise my deductibles. These high deductible healthcare plans, I think, are great for young people. They often have deductibles of $2,900, which is a lot of money. But anything above that would then be paid for at 100%. So what you're really insuring with that type of a plan is you're insuring the catastrophic risk, right? We're saying that I can find a way to pay for the first $3,000 or so, but above that, I need help. If I'm in a major car accident, I'm in the hospital for a few days, that's what I need help with. But if I need to go to the doctor and pay $80 for my doctor's visit, I can do that and pay $30 for that generic prescription without necessarily the benefit of having the health insurance plan kick in to cover that. So that's, for me, for people just graduating, having that high deductible plan is often the best way to go because cash flow is at a premium, right? Does that make sense? You get the inverse relationship between deductibles and risk? Remember, insurance companies did not get into business to pay your claims. So it's they're going to want to manage risk every chance they can. You got to take your shots and manage it however you can as well. This also goes with every other type of insurance you have, with your auto insurance, your renter's insurance, which is really important if you don't have it, and your flood insurance. Regardless of where you live, ultimately you're going to want to have your flood insurance. There were flood events in 27 states last year, according to FEMA, so they happen all over the place. My wife's from Chicago. There was a huge flood event in downtown Chicago a number of years ago. Some crew working in the, dredging the Chicago River busted an old transportation tunnel, was used by the mafia, and flooded the downtown, flooded a lot of the downtown, the basements of a lot of downtown businesses. So you had crazy stuff all over the place. Friends live in Iowa; they get flooded all the time. So flood insurance is fairly inexpensive, really important. Renter's insurance is extremely inexpensive and very important.
What does that cover?
Renter's insurance is going to cover your property inside of your rental unit. So if my house gets broken into and I have some, equipment, electronics, for you musicians especially, got some higher-end music equipment, things like that, you want to make sure, talk to your insurance agent and add those onto your policy in a rider so that you know they're covered, and for the specific dollar amount and for replacement cost. Because you don't want them to just give you whatever it's worth. You need to go out and get another amp, another guitar. You want to have the replacement value for that. High-end computers, again, you want to make sure that's all added on specifically. But that's covered in the event that those are stolen. In the event that your house burns down, it gives you the money to be able to replace all that. And it's super inexpensive because they're only covering the contents of the home. They're not trying, it's not like my homeowner's policy. It doesn't cover the walls or the roof or anything else. It's just covering damage or loss to those contents. It's also what covers if your car gets broken into. Strange enough, that doesn't go into your auto insurance. It goes into your renter's or your homeowner's policy. The contents of your car. The glass damage and everything would be your auto insurance.
We'll talk about liability insurance.
Yeah. As you grow, you see all the commercials for Safe Auto or the General or all the auto insurance companies. You have to have a minimum level of insurance, liability insurance in the state of Louisiana. I think they just increased it to $25,000, $50,000 per accident. You got to have a minimum. As you grow in your career, you're going to want to have more. If you get into a bad auto accident and you really hurt a couple of people, and you get that State Farm policy for $50,000, they're just going to write a check to the other people, say thanks very much, and leave you to defend yourself. Whereas if you have a policy that's got a few $100,000 of coverage, they're going to be more likely to defend you and a bit more vigorously than they would be if it's just a smaller amount. And really, it's protecting your, if you go out and you injure somebody, they have a right to sue you for your personal wealth, effects. If you've got a business, this is incredibly important. So putting those liability types of coverage in place to protect you against those things is important. And so as you grow in your careers, you start to earn some money, look at increasing and getting above that minimum coverage line for your auto insurance. And just file this one away. It's not important yet, but as you become successful, you're going to want to get an umbrella insurance policy that gives you additional liability protection at home as well. Somebody slips and falls at your house. My wife and I live on the parade route, so always people running around our condo after parades, drunk. We're not necessarily wealthy, but we've got enough to protect, so umbrella coverage adds on another level of protection for us above our homeowner's insurance. But that automobile liability is the most important one for you guys to deal with right now.
They may need some corporate liability insurance if they open a company, right?
As that, your banker is going to help you with a lot of the specifics around that, but they're going to dictate the terms of exactly what you need. A lot of times they're going to make you go and get, if you get a substantial loan, they're going to make you go and get life insurance to protect against that, and then they will dictate what the terms of the liability insurance are for the business as well.
If you sign a professional services agreement with this university, you're going to have $500,000 of corporate liability insurance. And that means if you were to provide any services whatsoever, like building a website. The guy that built the center website, that's a $2,000 WordPress site, you had to get $500,000 for corporate liability insurance. That's what they require here.
All right. Anything else on health insurance, other types of insurance? Y'all still with me? All right. Well, we actually talked about this. How do you know if you have enough capital to start a business? I'm not really sure. But be conservative. It's going to cost more than you think. Types of savings accounts. I added the how to get more than 0% thing in there. The thing I'm most concerned about right now in the economy is how low we've allowed the cost of borrowing to go. So if you go and deposit money at a bank in a savings account, it's going to be very difficult to get a lot more than 0%. Go out and get we used to have money markets for people paying 5.5%, 6%, which a money market is a type of investment that invests in very short-term loans for large corporations so that they can borrow money at favorable terms, but you still earn a better than savings account interest rate. Very fairly risk-free type of investment. There are very few places to go right now and earn any kind of return on your cash. 0, 1, 2% is all you're going to find right now, and honestly, it's probably all you're going to find for the next year and a half, 2 years or so. So not a lot of places to put cash and earn a great return on your investment. Beware of the temptation to go and lock your money up for longer periods of time, though, because interest rates, we're at historical lows right now for interest rates. Inevitably, they have to trend upwards. If we go and put money in long-term savings vehicles, like a 5-year certificate of deposit, if you ever see these on websites, let me go and let me just do Chase because it's easy. If we go to the Chase website and see if I want to look at CDs, which stands for a certificate of deposit, it's basically saying I agree to lend you, the bank, my $10,000 or so for any given my $1,000 for any period of time. If I agree to let Chase have my $10,000 for 9 months, I can earn 0.5% on that. Yeah?
That's incredible.
Yeah. It's really remarkable what short-term rates have done. Whereas we used to have people renewing rates every year, 5, 6%. We're down to the 0.5% right now. A lot of the cash accounts on our investments pay 0 and they're actually losing money on them because the management fee is more than they're earning on the interest of the things they're investing in. But the temptation here would be to say, well, why don't I go and open up a 60-month CD at 3%? That's 6 times as much as I can get on that 9-month CD. The problem here is that our interest rates likely to be that low for that long. For 5 years is an awful long period of time in terms of interest rates. So very dangerous to go out here and lend money on long stretches. What we're really advising clients to do is to suck it up. There is an opportunity cost to, the opportunity to go and instead of doing a 1 year at 1%, do 5 years at 3%. But I'll tell you that 2% is worth it in flexibility. That you can get at that money if you need it. You'll be able to invest it in a year at, I would imagine, a better rate. I know you'll be able to invest in a better rate in 5 years. But regardless, having that capital available for you to start that business is still important. Or to do whatever it is that short-term project is. Again, money that's less than 5 years, I really don't recommend you invest in the stock market or anything that's going to have a lot of volatility in it.
So whatever the interest rate is when you open up that account is fixed?
Not necessarily, only for certain types of accounts. For CDs, that's how it works. And I just wanted to go through those because those are often how people go through those. But there are other types of, you can open up just a savings account, which, let's see if it gives me rates here. I don't think they're going to. You can open up a savings account, which is just a depository account in the bank. They maintain it for you. It's got FDIC coverage, and you'll earn a stated interest rate on that. This grows with the amount of money that you have in the account. And see, they're not even showing the interest rates on here. So it's probably going to be something along the lines of 0.25% that you would earn every year on your money in your savings account. You can go to your money market and maybe get around 1%. Or you have these Chase Plus savings, which if you've got a higher minimum balance, if you've got a $15,000 balance, $15,000 to deposit, they'll give you a better interest rate. These rates will fluctuate over time in the savings or money market accounts. If you go to a certificate of deposit, it's kind of like a reverse loan to the bank. So instead of you borrowing money and saying, I'm going to pay 5% a year for X number of years, the bank is saying, we're going to borrow $10,000 from you and we'll pay you 1.01% for the next 13 months. Does that kind of make sense? So CDs are very popular with retirees. We see a lot of people do that with, but it's a good place if you know you won't need money for X period of time. You can normally get a little bit better rate by locking it in a CD than you can just putting it in a savings account. Well, you'll still get a better rate in the CD, but it's just not great. Yeah, it's kind of hard to think about getting fired up over, saving your money at 1%. And inflation's running 3%. What's your net return out of that? -2. So, tough environment for cash, but still important. Cash is flexibility. All right. Let me try this again and see if this will work. And then, all right. So yeah. So types of savings accounts, unfortunately, not very much. And then on your student loans and rent, I think we talked about this. I'm not too concerned about federal student loans. Pay them off over time. Don't kill yourself about them unless it bothers you. How to pay the rent is a bigger thing, but manage that number ruthlessly. Keep a roommate. Don't sacrifice safety to, that's a fool's choice. You'll pay more in insurance than you will to rent something in a bad neighborhood. But there are good deals out there to be found if you have them. And I'll give you guys a rental company to stay away from off of camera. But that's everything I had. Is there anything else? What else has come up as we've talked or as I've talked that you all wanted to have covered that we didn't? Any follow-up questions? Anything else?
If you were going to borrow money from your parents who wanted to help you out with your business, what type of loan or agreement would you want to sign with them to be favorable to those borrowers?
Well, this is the place where, where low short-term rates equal opportunity. When we refinanced our condo, I went and borrowed, or my wife and I went and borrowed $50,000 from my in-laws to put towards the principal of our condo, which was at 6.5%. I borrowed it from my in-laws at 5% because they had it in CDs at 2%. So I was able to go to him and say, John, I'll pay you X amount of dollars per month for the next 12 years, basically, and put a little spreadsheet together at 5%. It says, I'll be better off for it, and you'll be better off for it. Now, is it really, their money at the bank is basically a risk-free thing, and a certificate of deposit, FDIC insured. The money they lend to me is not necessarily a risk-free thing, but they also know that I'm going to find a way to pay them back more than anybody else. So it's a little bit more risk for them, but they get a better return on their money. So I would say that's a great place. That's your opportunity with incredibly low interest rates, is to go to those family members and who want to do certain things for you and try to leverage that. Let me look and see if this is the...
So you're paying them 5%.
Right.
And that's 5% per year.
Well, I'm paying them 5% in interest compound. Basically, you can create an amortization schedule. And sorry, if I'm losing anybody here, it's really easy to Google amortization schedule, and you can find calculators that will build one for you. And it's set up to show them over time what will repay them, and they'll earn a net 5%, just like the bank would have, or like they would have had on that $50,000 deposit.
Is there a relationship, say a man wanted to borrow money to be on the road, what would be the relationship of the debt versus the cash flow?
I don't know. I mean, I guess it would have to do with the terms of the agreement with the record label, or if there's no label involved, it's a matter of managing your cash flow on your own.
I noticed that
Oh, sure.
So is there some?
Oh, is there like a magic number there?
Or a range?
A target, right. I don't know. That has a lot to do with risk, and that's each individual's thing. If you, I'll say if you believe enough in your opportunity to put some of it on the line, you might take it higher than you would otherwise, than you might otherwise feel comfortable with. You might be willing to get that debt to income ratio up there quite a bit. But it's a big risk. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have a very good answer for you on that one.
That's just something to
Yeah.
think about.
Yeah, but that's something that I think everybody in that situation would have to come to, try to come to a term with and figure out what they wanted or what they were comfortable with.
Now, when you give this kind of advice, you give it to your clients.
Sure.
And your clients are a fairly high net worth group, right?
$500,000 to $5 million in net worth typically.
$500,000 meaning they own assets worth $500,000.
Sure.
Which would be a house without a mortgage.
Yeah, so a nice house without a mortgage, a retirement plan, a small business, things like that. Most of our clients here are people who own businesses. I'll say New Orleans is a closely held business market. There's one Fortune 500 company here, so there's not a lot of my very good friends in Minneapolis who I've been talking and obscene amount of trash to over the past week. They work in very different people. There's a lot of publicly traded companies there, Best Buy, a number of other companies. So they work with people with a very different circumstance around stock options and things like that. We work with people a lot of times in helping them figure out how to manage that business as an asset and leave it profitably, either to their children, work out some type of internal gift or sale arrangement, or sell it to an outside party. And that's how most of the people who have a substantial net worth that we deal with have it, is from family businesses here.
But you're not going to really get involved with the startup business.
I will for, again, it's all about cash flow.
Yeah.
So,
It's big enough.
right. Well, or if people are willing, I'll make sometimes, risk reward, right? Sometimes I'll make an investment in a relationship where I'm not necessarily going to be paid my market rate, but I believe in these people over the long term, and it will come back to me. Doesn't always work out, but it's my time, and I get to make some of those calls. What I'm trying to put into place right now and haven't quite figured it out is some type of annual fee arrangement for people to have unlimited access to us that doesn't have to do with an asset management figure.
I think that would be a great idea if you could make it work financially.
Well, it's. I think it would have to be, my minimum would have to be $1,500 to $2,000 a year, and so for somebody like us, it would be 1.5%, 2% of our income. It's a pretty high number, but if you can show those people the value, it's something I think is worth. It's what I'm going to take a shot at. We'll see if it works or not.
Good idea.
Yeah. And there are also people that we'll work with on an hourly basis too. If somebody doesn't need ongoing annual advice, we'll often set up some type of arrangement to work with them on an hourly basis. Not a big fan of that because it's like calling your lawyer. People are reluctant to call their lawyer because they know they're going to get a bill in the mail in 3 weeks. I don't want it to be that way. I want people to call me every financial decision.
Really?
If you have questions about how to set up that car lease, let me help you with it because I can probably save you a couple $1,000s. I probably earn my fee on that lease or in that car purchase. So I don't want people to be reluctant to make, for me, the fewer barriers we have between our clients is the better. And so eliminating those conflicts of interest is what I think is really critical.
That's true.
This is the Virgin Money website, just one tool. And they have social lending. It creates this family method of lending for you and just kind of formalizes things. So you can look at their business builder product, and it will draft the loan for you. Loan documentation, you get it all legal, everybody can sign it, and put together you can even do, there are all sorts of good calculators available on the website now. So if you want to borrow $25,000 for over the course of 5 years and figure it's a 9% interest rate, what's my monthly payment going to be? $518 a month. So it's very easy to go through and calculate and do a lot of what-if scenarios and say, well, could I do that or could I swing that? If I switch that to 6, doesn't change a whole lot. But it's a lot of these things have to do with terms. If you take that 9-year loan that was $500 a month and make it a 10-year loan, so you dropped your payment. But this total interest pay number is what really jumps up at you. Be very careful about extending terms. Again, I just saw, I'm a big fan of John Maynard Keynes. He's my favorite economist. So I'm kind of a dork. I have a favorite economist. And his one of his famous quotes is that you can't look too far in the future. We'll all be dead anyway. So whether that's inevitably true, but going too far out to borrow money increases your borrowing costs and it locks you in. Again, it limits your flexibility to know that you're locked into something for 10 years. That's why car loans are 3 years or 5 years, because they don't want to be locked into you that long either.
But you're right there that for that 10-year loan, you're going to pay $13,000.
Yeah, you're going to pay $38,000 over the course of 10 years for the right to borrow that money right now.
And that's assuming that you make all those payments on time. Like on a credit card situation, there's all these extra fees that could kick in.
That's right.
That's a really critical part, right?
That is avoiding those extra fees, because they will pile up on top of each other. They will also most credit cards now have what they would term a default interest rate. So even if your interest rate is 10, you miss a couple of payments, your interest rate automatically becomes 24%, or something crazy.
Yeah,
Very.
I've seen higher than that.
Yes, it's really usury. I think it should be illegal.
So you could pay 28% on your credit card if you're not careful. I mean, you're stuck with it. Very difficult.
It's very difficult to go back and change those after the fact. It's also, I think, the great crime in our culture is these payday loan places that are all over the place, because they charge exorbitant fees to start up, roll over your loans on the back end, and they take advantage of people who don't know better. I always think that everybody started Bernie Madoff, and what a fraud he ran. Bernie Madoff stole from people who honestly should have known better. Mark Stanford is the guy, I think, who is the bigger criminal, who should get more of the rap than he's getting, with the Stanford group, because they preyed on people who didn't necessarily know better, and a lot more people. So,
Well, Western Union, you want to wire money, you're going to pay 10%?
sure, it's very expensive. So finding ways to minimize that. Even as you set up your businesses, you'll find your first transaction account, if you're doing something online and you've got to get a Visa merchandise account or something like that, you're going to pay 5% or so on each of those transactions. So it's an expensive deal. Even PayPal is going to take their cut. So it's all those things stack up, and life accumulates. So it's those will all stack up on top of each other. All right. How did that happen? I'll do one last website here. Wrapped it up for you. But yeah, Virgin Money, I think, is a good place to go and formalize some of those things if you want to do some family loans. Just be careful for how long and how much you get locked into those things. And make sure your family can really afford it, too. Nothing strains family like money.
I can tell you, you borrow money from your family, create long-term problems for you if you don't pay it back. So be careful with that.
Sure. This is, Quizzle creates their own grading system. I honestly don't know what all of the things are. I'm guessing this has to do with my debt-to-equity ratio. So that's what they estimate my home's value to be, and our mortgage is $225,000 right now. So that's their estimate of how I would stack up among like the entire population. We owe 70-something% or so the value of our house left.
So by the time you pay off that loan, you will have paid how much money?
Well, I'll show you. So I refinanced $225,000 for 30 years at 5%. $434,000.
You borrowed $225 and you paid $400.
Right, you pay $400 something. This is part of I think this goes back again to the 3 questions and knowing what you're really about. And part of that exercise, I'm not convinced that home ownership is a great investment. People always talk about owning their home as being the best investment they ever made, especially if people have been in their home for 30 or 40 years. The problem is they remember what they paid for it, but they don't necessarily remember all the property tax bills that were paid, placing the washer and dryer, painting it, replacing the roof, taking care of the grass. There's a lot of hidden costs in home ownership that people don't factor in. So I'm not a huge fan of it, honestly. But in part of this thing, it's very important for my wife that we had a home before we started to have kids. We don't have kids yet, but it was critical for Karen. Okay, that's fine. But taking that and not just buying a home because we thought it was a great deal, think about what kind of home we wanted to have that would support our lifestyle. I told you guys that travel is our real passion. So we bought a condo. Instead of having a home that I got to cut the grass and I got to, one of the big other requirements is we have a pool. We wanted a place, ideally, 2 bedrooms, 2 baths with a pool on or near the parade route were our criteria. And so if I had a home with a pool, it's for my wife. And Karen's not going to take care of it, so I don't even want to take care of it. So it's time for me to do grass to cut, house to paint, everything else. We have a condo. I pay a condo fee every month, and yeah, it's a decent amount of money, but I don't have to cut the grass. I don't have to take care of the pool. I don't have to pick up my mail. It's all taken care of for me. All my utilities are bundled into that one payment except for my internet, and I just come home and enjoy my house. And if we're gone for 3 weeks, we leave a note with security, and they hold our mail, and everything's waiting for us when we get back. So it's not a panacea, but it fits our lifestyle. So when you're looking at buying your house, make sure it fits your lifestyle. It's a very long-term purchase. You can't go short-term with that and make it just because it's a good deal. Get locked into a place, or you become house poor, which I see with young friends all the time, who've ended up with a house that's costing them a lot more to maintain than they thought. And you get money past, present, and future. Your housing is the biggest part of your money past. So you get stuck with that big house payment. There's no way out of it for 30 years. So you just gotta increase your income, or you gotta cut your expenses somewhere else, and you gotta deal with it. I always like Quizzle because for whatever reason my credit score with them was a lot better than it is with Credit Karma. You get 3 different companies, 3 different credit scores, and so I had a 702 with Credit Karma and Transamerica. I had a 782 over here. So that's tons better. And as you see, that's an A. So I can go and click this and look at my credit report. They'll give me a free credit report once every 6 months. And then if they're not showing any of the negative stuff in my credit report anymore, so they don't have any things that I can do to improve my credit. But for those of you that are looking to build your credit, then this may be a tool that will allow you to find some things and say, well, here are some things that you can do to help improve your credit score.
Now, we hear stories about people's credit being absconded with and people's credit being ruined because somebody broke in.
Oh, sure, identity theft.
Yeah. So what can you do? What should they do? Is anything particularly that they should do to protect themselves against that? Or just keep a lookout on these credit scores, keep watching your
Take a look at these on a regular basis, and if you're really worried about it, the easiest thing you can do is a short phone call to each of the credit bureaus and tell them that you want to put a fraud alert on your file. These are good for a year, and you have to renew them every year thereafter. But you can put a fraud alert on your file and say, I'm afraid my information got stolen. Please place a fraud alert on my file. And what that will do is they'll have to call you or contact you anytime that a new credit line is opened. It's annoying if you're going to open up some credit lines or to deal with some other things, but it does create an extra level of protection for you. So if somebody took that information and went to open up a new credit card or to try to buy a car, it should come up to say that, there's a fraud alert, please contact so-and-so at this phone number. And then you can either approve it if it's your own or you can stop it. It was a long time ago now. 7 years ago, we were on our way to Hilton Head, South Carolina to meet my wife's family for a week for a vacation. And our hotel room got broken into while we were at breakfast. And they took, really smart, obviously not the first time they had done this, they took the cash out of my wallet, they took my wife's wallet out of her purse. So we just grabbed all of our stuff and left. We didn't know for several hours that somebody had stolen that stuff from our room. Jacksonville's a miserable. I'm sorry, if any of you are from Jacksonville, I'm sorry, it's a miserable place. the largest city by landmass in America. It's just astounding. But and they won't even support their football team. They got a really good football team, and they can barely sell out. They can't even sell out the stadium. It's astounding. But they are, so they had done this, and when we had all this done, we called it, cancel our cards. They had already spent several $1,000s on them. Had to file the fraud reports. Ultimately, we weren't liable for those expenses. The vendors were. But it was a big hassle to deal with. So be very careful with your valuables when you're staying at hotels. And the reason we learned about this fraud alert thing was they all said, do you want us to put a fraud alert in your file? Absolutely. And so as we went to get a car after that, it came up, they put through the credit application and came up with a fraud alert. And while we were there, we got a phone call from the credit bureau saying, is this Mr. Boudreaux? Yes. Are you applying for, yes, we are. Here's the information, confirm some personal information, and they released it. It does work.
What about debit cards? Those can be kind of costly. They seem to be free, but they're not.
Yeah, you have with debit cards, you don't have I think they've gotten a lot better about this, but you just not have the protection that you have with credit cards. If somebody wouldn't use your debit card, you were liable up to the amount that was in your checking account. I think that most banks have now put in like a $50 protection. Like, you're liable for the first $50 or the first $100, but not everything that was in your account.
We also hear stories about people charging $10 worth of stuff on a day, 3 different transactions, but because they fall below some limit, they get charged $20 fee.
Huh.
Is there a way around this debit card fee problem that seems to be plaguing debit cards?
I don't know. I hadn't really heard much about that, so that's something I'd have to dig into a little bit. It's not necessarily. I'd say I'm a big fan of credit unions. You normally get better terms on your loans there. And it's the big banks that got us into all this trouble. It's not the credit unions. They weren't the ones who made a lot of, people talk about, the history of all this is still being written. But there were these loans that you could get in 2006 that were called ninja loans. I love Japanese things, so I'm particularly fond of ninja loans. But ninja loans stood for no income, no jobs, or assets. So you could just kind of go in and say, here's how much I want to borrow, and they would file the paperwork for you and write you a loan to buy a $300,000 house. Credit unions were never part of that. So I'm a big fan of ASI Credit Union, Jefferson Financial. There's a couple of others around here. They have local boards. They don't compensate their executives crazy amounts, no corporate jets or any of that stuff. And the people that you're borrowing from and supporting are local people in the community. And they are all investing their money back in this community. So I'm a big, big fan of credit unions. I think that people should do whatever they can to support them. And you'll oftentimes get favorable. You may not be able to get some of the flexibility you can with the Chase or things from a business loan standpoint. But from a personal banking standpoint, you can do just about everything you need to do with them.
Any other questions? Everybody understands their money now? Everybody's happy with it?
So some things to think about. This is a process. Like everything, it's something that you will grow with and get better over time. So don't think you have to have the answers to all the questions. A lot of life accumulates, so pay attention and learn from your mistakes. Don't just allow them to be wasted mistakes. And if there's anything that I can do for you, anything you wanted to ask that you didn't feel comfortable asking in person, jude.boudreaux@gmail.com is my personal email address. So email me, and I'll do whatever I can to help you.
That's a big offer.
Oh, sure. No, I'm here to help. I owe, I got, Loyola. I don't know that I'll be able to repay Loyola for what it's given to me. I had, 4 years of tuition and everything here, and I really believe in. I've seen the people who gave to us when I was here that made it possible for me to have the experience that I had. And I think that it's incumbent upon me to do that. I hope to one day be able to endow a professorship here. So
Wow, that'd be great.
we'll see if that goes. It's a long ways down the road, but we'll see. You gotta have the vision, right?
That's a nice vision. So
So.
we thank Jude Boudreaux.
Thanks, guys.
I really appreciate it.
Oh, sure.